Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
From installing a smart garage door opener, to installing a bathroom faucet, to removing a tree, the Home Depot believes you can do anything, especially the things we have how-to guides for. Visit HomeDepot.com for thousands of tips, workshops, and ideas for projects, big and small. The Home Depot app, how doers get more done.
This week we look at repairing damaged stained wood. Bit of a challenge, but it can be done. Also expanding patios. Everybody's looking at different ways they can expand that outdoor living area. We've got some great ideas for you. Also, we'll be checking in with Chelsea. Chelsea Lipford Wolf drops by with yet another great project that you can do around your home. Dangers and solutions for asbestos in your home. And can you put a metal roof over an existing asphalt roof? You can in some situations, and we'll tell you when and why. Also, backsplash tips. Everybody loves these backsplashes, whether it's in the kitchen or bathroom or hobby areas of the home. There are a few ways to make it a lot simpler and a lot more do-it-yourself friendly. And of course, Joe, what about that simple solution you're going to share with us?
I've got a tip on how you can use ice cream cones to help you start plants from seeds.
Yum, yum. That sounds like an intriguing one. Okay, well, let's get started right now. We're going to go right to Columbus, Ohio, which is a fantastic area right in the middle of the country there. Gary's on. Gary, welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on with all these interior doors you're working on.
We have louvered doors that I took down that went between the kitchen and the dining room, and they're all stained, the doors and the woodwork. So trying to figure out the best way to patch the hinge mortises on the jamb.
Okay. Well, great pictures that you sent, and a situation that I have been in quite a bit. And I'll have to say right up front, I have never found, and I've tried everything. I've tried the quote stainable putties, the all kinds of different things like that. And it's just, I don't know, Joe, maybe you've had a better experience at some of the things that when you're talking about, this is right in the open. This isn't a subtle thing. This is right at a doorway that you would walk through.
Actually, two doorways.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Any idea for Gary on this, Joe? Because the stainable putty a lot of times is really not stainable.
No, well, it's stainable, but it doesn't match the wood, so what's the point? Gary, there's a couple of options. The way this is typically fixed is with, I'm sure you've heard of a Dutchman patch, which is essentially,
right.
I'm not sure where that term came from, but it's basically just cutting a separate piece of wood to fit in there. And ordinarily what you do is use a sharp knife and a chisel, and you square up the mortise as well as you can. Then you cut a piece of wood that obviously is the same species and has a grain similar to the wood, in this case the door jamb, and you set it in there, you glue it in there, you leave it a little proud, and you plane it or sand it down, and then you stain it. But you still see it. It's still pretty obvious because you've got the outline. So what I would recommend if you really want to hide this is do that, put in a patch, and at that point, you can put in, you try to make it as close as possible, but then veneer over the entire edge of that jamb, the face of that jamb. Now, because the door stop is there, you don't have to actually do the full width of the jamb, which is, might be 4.5, 5 inches wide. You only have to do that, whatever it is, like 1.75 inch strip.
Correct.
Right? So now you can buy 2-inch, I believe you can get 2-inch wide iron-on veneer. Now, it typically only comes in oak and birch and or maple, one of those three. I'm not sure. But that would probably be, if you really want to hide it, other than replacing the jamb, that would be the only way to do it.
That's a good thought. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
I saved the door, one of the doors, which was stained the same color, so I was going to cut the Dutchman out of that.
You could, but like I said, you're going to see it. It'll match, but you'll still see the outline. And if you want to try that, you might think, oh, this isn't so bad anyway, and just live with it like that. But you would have to get an absolute perfect match as far as the grain and the color.
That would be difficult, but the door's close. But
Well, you could certainly try that, and if you don't like it, then you can always veneer it.
which that means I would have to veneer
The whole from the floor to the head jamb. Yeah, the whole thing, not
and
just
across the head jamb and down the
Well,
other side.
why would you have to do the head jamb? Head jamb doesn't have a.
Actually, the head jamb has where the ball socket
Oh, I see. Yeah.
to lock the door went in. Yeah.
Well, you'd have to do that too, I guess. That would be less noticeable because it's overhead.
I think that's a great idea. And, using the veneer is a lot easier than you might think, with the heat-activated glue and that kind of thing. Well, that's a foolproof way of doing it. Look at old Joe. Joe came up with a pretty good little solution there.
Early in the show, too. Gary, usually takes me an hour or two to come up with a good idea, but here I came right out of the... So I might have to take the rest of the show
We're
off.
already into May, and it's the first good idea he's had all year. This is great. This is really good.
So you only have to wait 5 more months for another one. The only thing, and the tip, Gary, when you're putting on those iron-on veneers, no matter where you're using it, as soon as you iron it on, get a block of wood that has a slightly rounded edge, not a square edge, and rub it on don't have to try to crush it, but rub it down, because when that heat-activated glue is still wet, if you rub it, it'll really, really bond and hold. It'll never come off at that point.
I like that idea. Joe, that was a good one.
Thank you. Let us know how it works out.
I think it'll probably work out well for you, Gary. Hey, thanks so much for being with us again. Tell everybody there in Columbus, Ohio, we said hello.
I will. Thank you, Danny.
Okay, thank you very much. It's time for our best new product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Keeping your tools organized in your garage or workshop is difficult enough, but often you need some of them somewhere else. Boy, that happens to me all the time. That's why Ryobi has developed the Link modular storage system so you can organize, access, and transport your gear. The system consists of wall rails, hooks, hangers, bins, and toolboxes, so the organization that you have going in the garage goes with you wherever the project is happening. All of the components are made from impact-resistant material and designed for easy use. And like the wide steel telescoping handles and all-terrain wheels on this toolbox, in the garage, it keeps things organized, and then and also right in the back of your truck. It protects them from water and dust, and you can easily secure it with a locking point and integrated tie-down anchors. Plus, there's a whole line of other products in the Link system that use the same locking technology to seamlessly connect your mobile and stationary storage needs. Now, I'm sure I've intrigued you on that, so you need to go to HomeDepot.com and check out Ryobi Link Storage System. Very unique, very modern way of taking care of your tools that you need inside your shop, in your truck, wherever you may need those tools. So check it out at HomeDepot.com. Right now, we're going right back to the hotline, and we'd love to hear from you on our hotline. All you have to do is pick up the phone anytime, 24 hours a day, and call 800-946-4420. Vic's on the line right now from North Carolina. Tell us all about what's going on there, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Good to be here. My home was built in the early 70s, and when it was built, they included a patio, which was roughly 9 by 20, and that patio off the back is made with brick pavers, which are set in a base of concrete. Of course, over the years, the mortar has deteriorated to a point that some of the pavers are now loose. A couple of the brick columns on the corners, my sense is they're starting to loosen, and we would like to expand the footprint of the deck, but don't particularly want to go through the hardship of jackhammering all that brick and concrete. My question is it possible to remove the pavers, since how they're set in a base of concrete, and then use that concrete base as a partial support for something like a new composite deck?
Okay. Looking at the pictures here, boy, that doesn't really look that bad, but I can understand where you would want to expand it a little bit. But, boy, you've got the little knee wall. You've got a little, and for our other listeners, just so that they understand, we're talking about a brick patio that looks like it's probably 7 or 8 feet out, and it's got a wood rail on the outside and a little brick edge there that sticks up as well. Boy, you've got a lot of options here. The only thing I would say, sometimes people would look at building decks decks or putting something like that in an area like this. And when it's this low to the ground, it never seems, in my opinion, to really look that good after it's done. I would almost look at trying to maybe go over this and go with pavers so that you can extend it on out into your yard, because you can use that same base. So are a lot of the bricks loose already?
No, I would say 20% or so. And then, of course, over time, the mortar joints have deteriorated. So if we did leave the existing brick, there would need to be a lot of pointing going on to refill some of that concrete that's deteriorated out.
Yeah. Now, the columns that I see, I'm only seeing part of this. The columns that I see that are extending up, are they supporting a roof, or are they just going up just a little bit?
No, they're going up approximately 3 feet.
Okay. All right.
The issue with the columns were they were not an original part of the patio. So the previous homeowner came in, laid some mortar on top of the existing paver bricks, and then set those columns in that. So they're not attached, if you would, as an integral part of the original patio. They're just add-on.
Well, we'll see what my buddy Joe says about this, but I'll tell you, just initial reaction, man, I would remove those handrails. I would remove those columns. I would go on top of those paver bricks with just a exterior floor leveling compound, just to kind of tighten them all up a little bit. Then I would go ahead and out in your yard, as far as you want to go, I would go ahead and put the paver base, pack it in place, and then you can glue the pavers right to your existing brick pavers. You know, and you might even want to go with something a little different than brick shape. You might want to go with 12 by 12, 12 by 16. We did one patio recently with 12 by 24s, and it was incredible and a lot easier to install, even though they're a little heavy. And you could install that over that entire patio, let it extend out into the yard, and man, that would be, first of all, that's a great base for it. But you could extend that right on out. Pretty easy to be able to implement that. Joe, what's your reaction on the overall look of it, and your thoughts for Victor on this?
Yeah, Vic, I'm looking at these photographs, and I can see why this is challenging, because it's like, okay, I can fix it and take, maybe it takes a few days and a few $100s, or am I just going to pull it all up and spend thousands of dollars and spend most of the summer trying to rectify this situation? And I think there's something in between. If you basically like the look of the brick and you're just concerned that they're coming up, and it's whether it's 10% or 20% of the brick, you could just repair those bricks. Bricks come up all the time, and you can put them back down, and then, clean the joints, the mortar joints really well. If they need to be repointed, you can repoint them. That's not that big a job. And you basically end up with a new brick patio with a minimal amount of work and time, I think. Ordinarily when we get a question like this, is either most of the bricks are pulled up, or the people just hate the look of brick and they want to do something else. If your question is, can you go over it with a deck? Yeah, you could always do that, but I think I would try repairing it myself. And then if that fails, then you can always spend the thousands of dollars by pulling it all up or going right over it with composite.
Then you would, if we did want to extend the footprint further out into the yard to make it a little bit more user-friendly, then you would extend that with pavers of some kind.
Yeah, and I would definitely, as Danny recommended, take down the railing and the pillars that are there and everything else.
We've done that many times, and it's very successful in being able to create that solid foundation outside that perimeter. And then, heck, have some fun. Put a curve on it, put a 45-degree angle out on the outside there. But I think you got a great opportunity to make a heck of a place this summer.
Okay. That gives me another job on the list.
That's exactly right. Well, just take it a step at a time. That's one of the things about pavers. You don't have to do it all at one time. You can do it a little bit at a time. But if you run into any snag whatsoever, you know what to do. Just give us a call here at Today's Homeowner. It is time to check in with Chelsea. Checkinginwithchelsea.com. Chelsea, how you doing? And I understand you just posted a brand new video. This is something that a lot of people will be very interested in.
Yes, it's a build-your-own console table. And if you don't know what a console table is, it's just a simple piece of furniture that you might find in someone's foyer or underneath a TV. And the one that I built, and I'm showing you how to build, doesn't have any drawers or any storage like that, but it looks real good.
But when you think about something that a lot of people might not realize is I saw this video, and installing wallpaper on it, that might throw a few people off, but boy, that's something that can really create fantastic look.
Yeah, and wallpaper paper's a lot more durable than people would think of it. And the kind I used was peel and stick, so I didn't have to use any adhesive. There was no paste involved. So it was just a big giant sticker that I put on top of the table and a little bit inside. To give you a synopsis of kind of how you build it, this one is just a real simple, clean line look. And so I basically created 3 boxes out of plywood and 1x2s. What's cool about it, and I like to kind of stretch the materials I use, as I didn't use any nails or screws. So Joe might ask, well, how are you holding it all together, Chelsea?
I was just going to ask that.
I like that. Joe may ask.
Because Dad seemed kind of confused about how is the wallpaper holding together all this plywood?
So I used Titebond original wood glue, with the red label to hold it all together. And I chose that specific kind because it dries quicker than the other 2 kinds of Titebond wood glue, which means I didn't have to clamp my project for very long. And I was able to move on to the next step quicker. And the next step is, after you have your 3 boxes built, you have 2 small boxes that make up the legs, and then you create your tabletop, which is longer than the legs, and you add more wood glue and set the tabletop on top of your legs, and voila, you have a table.
And at that point, now first, what thickness plywood do you use?
I did 3/4 inch so that I would have, just the stability of it. And with the 3/4 inch and the 1x2, it ended up being a 3-inch thick table,
right.
Or at least, it looks like a 3-inch slab of wood once I covered it all in a grass cloth or a faux grass cloth wallpaper.
Oh, and where are you using it? Did you say where you're using it?
I'm using it under our TV, and then I bought these big giant fabric poofs that go underneath.
Pardon me?
An ottoman, perhaps?
Oh, an ottoman.
Okay, yes, there we go. That go underneath that the kids can pull out and sit on to watch TV or whatever.
Oh, that's great.
I realized the other day that poofs or ottomans are like the adult version of a beanbag.
Oh, okay.
A beanbag chair.
Right.
So perfectly acceptable in adulthood. But
you can use this piece of furniture just about anywhere. I can, when I look at it, and hey, if you want to see it, go to checkinginwithchelsea.com right now. And really cool. You'll be surprised at the simplicity of this, but also kind of a modern little kind of an edgy kind of feel to it. And then when you're talking about putting the wallpaper on top, there's a lot of different wallpaper out there, so you can make this look just about any way that you want.
That's right. And like I said, you could use it in a foyer, just a small little piece of accent furniture wherever you need a small little table to hold a lamp.
I could see it behind a sofa for photographs, like framed photos. Sometimes you see those on there just low enough, they just below, because with this technique, you can build it wider or lower or narrower.
Absolutely.
Once you have the technique, you can build it any size you want.
I know. That's what I love about it.
So again, if you want to see this project and a lot of other ones, there's a lot of information waiting on you at checkinginwithchelsea.com. A lot of great blogs on there to give you some solutions to some very simple issues that you may have around your home. And again, inspiration on little projects and little things that you can do. There's so many great little videos on there. And I'm glad to have you on the show. As always, Chelsea Lifford Wolf.
All right. Thanks, guys.
The sound of you doing is music to our ears. Order on the Home Depot app and get convenient delivery, so you don't have to stop doing when you need something. The Home Depot app, how doers get more done.
We want to keep bringing you the kind of information that you need each and every day to make your house the best looking house on the block. And part of that is very simple projects like the simple solutions that come from Joe Truini. Joe, what do you have today?
All right, Danny, starting plants from seeds indoors is a great way to get a jump start on your summer planting. But instead of using small plastic pots, try making seed starters out of ice cream cones. What you want to do is go out and buy the wafer style cones that have the flat bottom. They look like little cups. And you you're going to do is take the cones, fill them up with potting soil, poke a hole in it with a pencil or a similar tool, drop in the seeds, and cover the seeds with soil. Then stack up these cones, and like I used an aluminum baking pan, but you can use almost anything. And you put in several of them, and they'll stand upright again because of the flat bottom cones. And then mist the soil with a little bit of water, and place them in a sunny window. And once the seeds have sprouted and the weather is consistently warm enough outside, then you're going to take the ice cream cones, you're going to plant them in your garden, ice cream cone and all. Just take the entire ice cream cone and plant it right into the soil. The cones are 100% biodegradable, will decompose into the garden soil within a week or so, and the plants will be well established at that point.
Oh, there you go. That makes so much sense. I can visualize that very, very well. I also can think about how cool that is to work with the kids on something like this.
Oh, that's right. Of course, you're going to have extra cones and some ice cream at the end.
I was going to say, if you're breaking out the ice cream cones, their mind's going to go directly way away from any kind of gardening issue. So you got to have the ice cream, smorgasbord ready to go on that. Right. But what a great idea, and it makes so much sense because the biodegradable aspect of that, would work very, very well.
And you don't have to, sometimes these seedlings are so tender and vulnerable that the yanking them out of plastic pots, you could disrupt them or whatever. Here, you don't touch them at all. You just plant the whole cone. And if you want to see a video of this, go to todayshomeowner.com/simple solutions, and you'll see this exact tip being videotaped.
And while you're there, you might be there a while because there are over 550 simple solutions. The video versions, 60 seconds, and boy, you see one, you're going to want to see another one and another one and another one. And just think about the knowledge that you gain along the way that, we call it cocktail party knowledge. So you're sitting around and someone says, I've got this door that just won't stay open. Well, here's what you need to do about it. I came up with this idea the other day, and it's okay if you go ahead and claim that you came up with this. That's okay, because you're helping your friends, your neighbors, and acquaintances with any problems that they may have around the house. And that's exactly what we like to do here on Today's Homeowner. Hey, let's go back to another call from the Today's Homeowner hotline.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I was calling in regards to a house that I recently purchased. It was built in the 1940s, and it has asbestos over the ductwork in the basement. I was wondering the best way to handle that. I cannot afford to change all the ductwork at this time. I guess I just need your recommendations on how to cover it or what to do. My name is Rhonda. Really enjoy your show. Thank you for putting the show out there. It's been very helpful. And I'll look forward to hearing back from you.
Okay, Rhonda. Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And, it's a little unsettling when you have asbestos. There's a lot of different asbestos that can be in older homes. There's asbestos in floor tile adhesive, and a lot of it is a off-white wrap that goes around to insulate heat, to keep heat from affecting the home and so forth. One of the things, of course, the asbestos abatement can be considerable in cost. Encapsulation is a big word and means a lot of different things in a lot of different aspects of the home. But Joe, I wonder, she's talking about having it around the ductwork. I'm questioning if maybe it's around the vents. I don't recall ever seeing it around actual ductwork as much as around heat vents and exhaust vents and so forth. I wonder if that may be what she's talking about. And I'll tell you what, just for a peace of mind, and I mean, if you took a urethane spray or any type of spray and sprayed all over it, that alone, I think, will help considerably versus what would be involved in trying to remove it.
Yeah, I mean, asbestos is no joke, right? It's a carcinogen, but only when it's what they call friable, meaning that it's dust in the air and you breathe it. Just simply having it in your house, if it's contained, isn't an issue. As long as you stay away from it and it stays away from you. But some people don't want to live with that even in the house. And when you go to sell your house, that might be an issue as well. You can definitely encapsulate it with paint, a special paint. It's called bridging encapsulant. That's the technical term. And they also have a penetrating encapsulant that like soaks into and bonds with the asbestos fiber so they won't flake off. Alternately, you can wrap the pipe with an encapsulating tape. And this would all be something I think I would get a professional to do. And Rhonda was saying she can't afford to replace the ducts. Well, if you call in a company, you wouldn't replace the ducts. They would be in charge of taking off the asbestos and leaving the ducts. So it's not, I mean, it still might be pretty expensive, but they wouldn't be just pulling out the ducts and leaving you with no ducts. So unfortunately, I mean, if it was my house, I think I would make the investment to get rid of all that asbestos, because at some point you're probably going to want to sell this house and another homeowner might have the same issue.
And at least get some recommendations. There are some very simplistic abatement processes that are out there. And, having one of the guys that are trained and routinely does this kind of work can advise you a lot better. Now, of course, there's those scare tactics out there. You got to get it out of your house and this kind of thing. So that's where you want to get 2 or 3 different opinions to make sure you feel comfortable that you're not spending more money than you need to, and that you're making your home not only safer, but one that's more desirable for the next buyer when that happens to take place. So you got to be careful with some of those materials that we've used in the past that are no longer acceptable. Hope that helps you, Rhonda, in being able to go ahead and get a couple estimates on what it'll take to get it completely out of there, or whatever methods they recommend to encapsulate it. We're going to check in with Quentin in Montana. Montana's a great place to hang out. And Quentin, I hope everything's going well for you. Welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on there.
Thank you, Dan. What I'm looking at doing, Dan, just to update you a little bit, is we have about a 1,600 square foot log cabin, and I wanted to tin the roof. And my question to you is, it has a single layer of shingles. Do I remove the shingles to tin that, or can I leave those on?
Well, I tell you, we get that question quite a bit, and a lot of people are curious about that. And you can get a few different opinions there, but our friends at the Metal Roofing Alliance ensure us that as long as you only have one layer on your roof, in terms of one layer of asphalt shingles, it's perfectly fine to go right over. There's a lot of benefits when you think about that. It's an extra layer of protection in addition to the metal, though you really don't need that. And also, it just keeps that many more shingles out of our landfills. So you'll find that it's very acceptable. A lot of times they'll put the runners, they'll put 1x4s or 2x4s down on top of the roof, depending on the situation. And that's where getting that really good qualified guy out there that does a lot of metal roofs on existing situations can give you the advice on a few things. Because there's a few little nuances sometimes around the edge on the fascia area on exactly how to handle that. If you're adding 1x4s or 2x4s to it, you want to make sure that fascia and that finished look is up at the level that you want. So, I think you would be in good shape since you have just a single lever. And the metal roof just really does hold up very well. A lot of comfort level involved in that. Don't you think, Joe?
Oh, absolutely. And Quentin, the only thing I would add is, yes, you can go over it. It's preferred that it's in flat and not completely rotted off the house. The old roof is at least flat and basically waterproof, so it's not causing any trouble. The only reason, and first you'd save about 25% in labor costs, by the way, by leaving this on, because you don't have to pay for the tear off. The only reason I would ever recommend a tear off or putting any kind of roofing over an old roofing is it does allow you to inspect the roof deck, to upgrade any ice and water shield, anything like that. Now with a metal roof, that's probably less of an issue, but as long as you're pretty confident that the roof deck itself is in good shape, meaning it's not badly rotted by water or bugs or who knows what else, then yeah, they could go right over. But that would be the only, if you hear any resistance from a roofer, that would be it. They would say, well, I want to tear everything off because it gives me an opportunity to inspect the roof deck and make any repairs as necessary.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I did look at it, and the roof is good. There's no leaks in the roof. It good. Is, I'm guessing the roof, they say it's 5 years old, but I'm thinking it's closer to 10 to 15 years old, the shingles. But right. I would put stripping down, and also leaving the shingles on, that would help the sound quality also for rain and light hail and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do. The new metal roofs, though, are much quieter than you would have thought. you'd think they would be, and certainly a lot quieter than they were, 20 years ago or whatever. Because they do insulate. They can insulate in between. Sometimes there's a coating on the back, so I mean it's going to be a little noisier than an asphalt roof, but it's not going to sound like golf balls falling on your house. Except when you get that hail out in Montana, maybe you'll hear it.
Yeah. It's been pretty good, but you just never know when the storm's going to come through and how big it's going to be. But right. That was my question, and I do have qualified people to install that. I would not be installing this myself. The bunkhouse and the pump house and that I do myself. But the house I'm not going to do. I'll have them do it, and I would be putting 1x4s down, stripping. I would strip the roof. I definitely would do that.
Perfect.
And,
you'll be glad once you get it all complete and everything. It looks good, and it's going to hold up to those harsh conditions that you have from time to time there in Montana.
Yeah, that's right. And I was just hoping someday maybe you guys would come out and do a project this direction. That'd be neat.
Well, we would love to do that. We've done projects all over the country, and I've been to Montana a number of times. Beautiful area out there. So who knows? We might show up at your doorstep at any time.
Okay, that sounds good. But it's sure nice visiting. Thank you for answering my questions, and we'll catch you another time.
Okay, sounds great, Quentin. We appreciate it, and you have a great weekend.
What Danny failed to mention, though, is we're going to show up not with our toolboxes, but with our fishing rods.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be fishing. What, we're going to work? Oh, no.
Well, now that he has that nice roof on the bunkhouse, we can go fish.
Yeah. Once you get the new roof on, let us know. We'll be headed out with
we'll be right there.
All of our fishing gear. But I did want to remind you about that special page that we posted recently at todayshomeowner.com/metal roofing. We've worked with our friends at the Metal Roofing Alliance to aggregate some really good articles and things to knock down the myths about metal roofing, so showing you the advantages of it with extreme weather, as well as many, many other benefits of having a metal roof. And if you have not seen all of the variety of different metal roofs that are available out there, you'll be absolutely blown away by some of the simulated shingles that they have. And also, you want to dig into some of that information about the extreme weather, whether you're, in some of the areas where you have a lot of wildfires, or you in some of the areas where you have some extreme winds. Metal roofing is a solution to a lot of those problems. So again, it's todayshomeowner.com/metal roofing. And I wanted to make sure that I shared with you this email that came in. It's from Stephen from Minnesota. It says, I'm converting my basement into a man cave, and I want to put a cool tile backsplash behind the bar. I'm already a little over budget, and my wife is getting a bit tense. Can you help me with the basics of tile setting so I don't have to get a contractor involved? Well, Stephen, you're on your own as far as working with your wife and justifying that expense, but I'll tell you how to make the project a lot easier than having to apply adhesive with a notch trowel, which is a traditional way of doing it. You need to find out about Simple Mat from our friends at Custom Building Products. It's a self-adhesive sheet that sticks right to the wall. Then you peel off the protective layer, and then you're ready to set the tile. And the real good news is that you can start grouting as soon as you have the tiles in place, because you don't have to wait for the adhesive to dry overnight. You can finish the whole thing in just one day, and just think how that will make your wife very, very happy. And of course, the bad news is once your wife sees it, you're going to be doing the kitchen next. I guarantee it. So find out more about that by going to custombuildingproducts.com. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week, and you can send us a question or comment anytime by going to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. This one came in from Lawrence in Salem, Oregon. Hi, Danny. I stripped down an old wood door down to bare wood. Then I applied one coat of latex primer. After letting it dry overnight, the surface felt a bit rough, so I smoothed it out with my orbital finishing sander, but then I noticed a few small raised spots on the door that looked like hardened paint blobs. I know they weren't there before I started sanding. How did this happen? Why did it happen? And how can I remove those? Joe, what do you think? We got a little mysterious knots popping up here, or what is it? And I'm not sure it's a real problem since he's obviously going to paint the door. It seems like that would cover it all up.
Yeah, I guess it depends on these tiny paint blobs, and they are paint. I'm guessing it's the primer that he put on. If these paint blobs are raised enough, then they might be visible through the top coat of paint. But he mentioned that he applied the primer and the surface felt rough, and that's typical. That the first coat of any primer,
grain a little bit.
It raises the grain, and it feels kind of like prickly or furry or whatever. So you always have to knock that down. Knocking down, it just means sanding it very lightly. But I think what happened is there's a phenomenon known, I think it's called pilling, where if you sand paint, or in this case primer, and you either use too much pressure or the wrong abrasive, what you're doing is that friction, that sanding friction, will melt the paint, or primer in this case, melt the primer. I think in Lawrence's case, he was sanding it with maybe at too high a speed or too rough of paper, and he melted some of that primer, or actually the dust. And what happens is then it dries and it forms these little paint blobs. So what he needs to do is just very lightly sand, even maybe by hand with some maybe 220 grit sandpaper, and just knock off those little blobs. And something I always recommend when you're sanding anything is, after you sand it, you always brush off the surface. Then you sand, because otherwise you're sanding on top of what's on the surface. So you should always clean it really well and then continue sanding. So I think that's what he's experiencing here, is that pilling, which is, again, it's called pilling because as you're sanding it, you're melting that paint, and it's creating, the orbital action is creating these like little balls, and then the friction makes them melt and they stick. So basically that's it. Just let it dry, make sure they're good and dry, and lightly sand them off, and be sure to always sweep the surface clean between sanding.
So just a little finesse. A little finesse in the sanding.
Which we're terrible at. I'm terrible at.
That's right.
I have 20 tools that all have variable speed. I never do anything but high speed. Why would I ever set my belt sander at 1?
That's right.
But my belt sander actually has a 1 setting.
Full speed.
I have no idea
exactly
why.
Right.
I'm not going to wear that out, that's for sure.
But that's a good point. A tack rag, and being able to wipe down maybe with a light mineral spirits, even a lot of times just plain water, not a lot, but just a little, just to get that dust off of there. Make sure that you allow all the moisture to dry before you apply any coat. It's going to be a lot more successful. Lawrence, I certainly hope that helps you. And again, if you'd like to send us a question for our podcast, do it right now. todayishomeowner.com/podcast. And always, thank you so much for the great reviews. Thank you for spending some time. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and we really appreciate you spending some time with Joe and I on our Today's Homeowner podcast. Danny Lippert here, along with Joe Truini. Thanks for listening to this Today's Homeowner podcast. We'll see you next week.